looking at Russia and Syria reminds me of lessons that can be learned from the very distant past. In this case, you can make a very good argument that Russia is overextending itself. For one thing, their supply lines have to go through the Bosphorus. That means the Turks. Russia and the Turks have had a very difficult relationship for a very long time. And the Turks, therefore, are in a position to make that difficult at best. And that's really their only good supply line. They only have one good airport and naval base in Syria. And they're trying to prop up the Assad regime by doing so. Well, what this does is it's very likely to make their base like a lightning rod for jihadists to attack. At the Army War College, which I attended a few years ago, we looked at the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire reached the point of understanding that there were great dangers in overextending, that you could lose entire legions that way, and that therefore, you should settle for more defensible boundaries, and that you would deal with the threats to your frontier without direct military conflict. You could do it by bribery, by developing good trade. You could try and Romanize them. You could play them off against each other. In other words, that when you've got a very extensive empire, the frontiers of that empire present significant dangers, and you have to think through what is really worth fighting for. And the Romans were able, for the most part, to decide what was and what wasn't. An example in our history was being overextended in Vietnam. Vietnam was at the end of an enormous supply line from the United States all the way to Vietnam. You know, how do you continuously supply and take care of well over 500,000 men and some nurses on the ground in Vietnam at the end of that supply line? When Ho Chi Minh and his Ho Chi Minh Trail could much easier get what they needed much more quickly and in an effective manner. So looking at Russia's situation, just as they overextended themselves in Afghanistan, they could be running to very similar risks now. Russia has a wide variety of internal problems, like the low cost of oil, which is one of their major sources of revenue. Russia is made up of a patchwork of many different religious ethnicities, many of whom are restive. And if you get in the business of trying to help a particular religious ethnicity overseas, Assad's Shia, for example, which is 15% minority, well, that can very well cause issues within Russia itself. Chechnya is a good example of what could pop up again in their case. So I think there are lessons here, and it's not like Obama's just been outfoxed here. That it could very well be that Putin has got himself into more trouble than he has imagined.